Welcome to the Be More podcast. This is episode number 2, and this time we're in the same room, and thankfully we are not in Simon's bed. Simon, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Are you excited?
Very, very excited.
Cool. In today's episode, we're going to go over our common interests to give you guys an insight into who we are and how we actually know each other, what our day-to-day life actually currently looks like, and how we think our childhood, because we have both had different childhoods, and how we think they had an effect on where we are now and the difference between public versus private school and having wealthy parents versus not so wealthy parents. And lastly, we're going to speak about how, if we were to speak to our 18-year-old self, what would we give them advice on and what would we say not to do. So yeah, let's crack on, mate, shall we?
Absolutely.
Common interests, what are they?
Sport.
Yeah. Fitness.
Business.
Yeah.
Making money.
Yeah.
Property.
Yeah. Women. He's married.
He's single despite his best efforts. If you see here, these are the sort of pictures that Jack posts online all the time.
And this was in my living room.
This is in his living room.
If you are listening, then you don't get to actually see this, but it's probably a good thing. That was actually put there for banter, and when I moved back home to my dad's, it was left there, so... Not my doing, but yeah, it can stay. So yeah, how do we know each other? So, I got back from travelling, started PTing, and I started training Simon's dad. He started getting really good results, and Simon was like, I'm in, let's get massive, and yeah, from there we've been talking training, business for an hour every week since. And now it's got to the point where we spend a lot of time together, and we thought, let's do a fucking podcast.
Absolutely. So this is number 2, and we're really excited about number 3, 4, and however many more after that.
Yeah, and we both know that consistency is the key. So it's going to take a while, but we're just going to put in the work every week and record a podcast, and hopefully bring some value, and you guys will enjoy it just as much as we do. Because I think we're going to enjoy it more than anyone else.
Yeah, I think so.
And plus, interviewing people every week, well, it's for us to learn as well, more than anything. So,
should we crack on with the questions?
yes, we should. You go first. What does our day-to-day life currently look like?
So for me, I've got 2 children and I'm married, and I own a letting agency. So get up in the morning, always want to have breakfast with my daughter. So have breakfast with my daughter, and then listen to some sort of podcast or book or sort of audio book or YouTube on the way to the office. Get to the office around 8, literally got a to-do list which I look at first thing in the day and last thing at night. Crack on my to-do list during the day, try and put them in order of importance, make sure that I get the biggest things, like eat that frog, get the biggest things I need to get done, and most important things, sometimes the most difficult things done first, and then try and go through the day, prioritising the important bits first. Some point during the day try and fit in some gym time or fitness, so either go for a run or go to the gym, sessions with Jack, and then I try and have dinner or bath my children every night before I crack on for quite a few hours until I go to bed. I think the other things I do that are really important to me is my friendship circle is really important in terms of who's in that. I think because you spend a lot of time with those people, it's about making sure the friends you have, and it's not even necessarily conscious, but making sure the friends you have are having a positive influence on your time. So if I look at my friends, all of them are sort of successful people, or people doing well in business, people trying to make something of it. So yeah, that's.
I think that's big for you, isn't it? Where your parents and your friends are all like very positive influences on your life, whereas I probably could sit here and be the opposite almost. Not in a horrible way, but just in comparison, where like your friends are very, very successful and your parents are also very successful. I'm not saying my dad isn't successful, my parents aren't successful, but there's just a difference in income, and there's a difference in mindset. Yeah, like I class my upbringing as my biggest asset, but at the same time, that our upbringings are different, you know. Yeah. So
what's your day look like?
So my day, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning and I go to, well, my plan previously was I went to work at 6 and started training clients. And most recently I've changed my morning routine so that I spend like an hour on myself before I do that. So I get up at 4:30, have a shower. I used to eat breakfast, don't anymore. We'll go into that in future podcasts. Park my car up at work, then I tend to walk to Southsea and back and have about an hour of just me time where I'll listen to like someone does like a podcast or an audio book. And then I'll start my day with clients and work from 6 AM and I'll work with clients until about midday, sometimes a little bit earlier. And then the rest of my day is spent on my laptop in that little corner where you normally see me, creating content, doing work for my online business, and yeah, trying to pretend I'm an entrepreneur really. And then I train normally in the evening, and I've got freedom to train whenever really. And then I'll get home and I'll watch something that's kind of self-development based, or I'll continue to work and then I'll go to bed at 10. So basically I pretty much am working from 5 AM till 9, 10 PM most days, but I've got the freedom to see my friends. And I'll do that once or twice a week as well. But yeah.
That's probably one big difference between our lives at the moment is Jack's very fluid in terms of what he can do, and although he's got clients, he trains them fairly early in the day and then literally the rest of the day pretty much choose what he does. Whereas although I own my own business, mine is a sort of during the day 9 till 6, 8 till 6 business. So I'm working on the business literally for solidly during the day, and then other bits I want to fit in are done in the evenings. Whereas for you can concentrate on what you want to do during the day as well. Yeah,
which is good and bad because obviously I've got to be good at time management, otherwise I can lose time and not be productive. So that's something that I've found is super important, is making sure that I make the most of my time that I've got. So where it's so fluid, that can be an advantage and also a disadvantage, you know. So
how do you think your childhood prepared you for your current life and what you're doing and what you're achieving or not achieving now?
I think probably the sole reason why I do relatively well would be the way I was brought up, because I didn't really make an effort in school. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy university or college. I just went because I didn't want to go into work. I didn't want to do what I watched everyone else doing around me. So I think watching my dad get up in the morning, he starts work really early, so I think that's my main influence why I always get up early. He's always started early, but he never went to work and enjoyed it. Like he just went to work because he felt like he had to, or he still does, because he feels because he has to. And I've never wanted to fall into that trap of being in like the rat race where you have to do something you don't want to do to fuel a lifestyle that you live. I wanted to try and create something where I could do what I wanted to do, and that be my lifestyle. And I feel like I'm doing that, but seeing him do that, like seeing how hard he worked, like I always knew that it was down to work ethic because that's what he showed me. But I never wanted to repeat what he was doing. And my brother obviously has also gone down a similar path to my dad. He's also really successful, but I never wanted to be working for someone. I always wanted to do things for myself, and I always wanted to be my own boss. And I knew that from when I was young. I was like, I don't ever want to do that. That's why I went to college and went to uni, because I tried to put it off for as long as possible. And even when I finished university, I still had no idea what I wanted to do. But I wanted to do something where I had control. And
so yeah. Now you sit in front of a camera quite a lot of your time.
Yeah, so pretty much that's where it's led me, yeah. It's not really... But yeah, it'd be interesting to see the differences in our answers.
But I thought my answer would be quite different to yours there, but actually, to be fair, pretty similar. That I was really privileged to go to sort of a private school and that side of things, and my parents both worked really, really hard. But again, they work hard for other people, and I watched my dad get up, you know, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, get the train to London every day, and get home late. A lot of the time when we were children, you know, he was working away or. And he always made sure that he had time for us. There was never a time when I can say my dad didn't have time for me. Always did. Wherever in the world he was, you know, there was always time for phone calls. always come and watch us play sports at the weekend, never ever question dropping us anywhere, so I'd always be the one who would happily get dropped off, picked up from sport, never had to get the bus anywhere or anything like that. But again, for me, I think I recognised when I was really young that my parents were providing a really, really great life for us, but it was kind of coming at the expense of their free time, their flexibility, their ability to do what they wanted to during the day. So for me, what I want to create is that my daughter's 2 now, by the time she's 5, that I can spend all day every day with her, do whatever she wants to do during the day, that pick her up from school, drop her off to school. I've got a younger child as well, drop him off, pick him up, go for coffee or lunch or whatever with my wife or friends or whoever we want to go with. And I've got the flexibility to do what I want to do, rather than be controlled by somebody else and basically just trade my time for money. So pretty similar there in terms of your reasons for doing it.
And I think we've both had a lot of support as well from our parents to be able to go and do these things. The only difference is the understanding. I think maybe my parents don't understand self-employment at all. And that I haven't had any advice on how to build my own business from school, college, university, parents. I've had to learn it all on my own, and I've had to make every mistake there is to make. So whereas if I'd have grown up in a family where maybe they built businesses, or the difference that could have had would have been huge, which is why I think surround yourself with people who can help you is so important. Whether it's in your training and fitness, whether you need a personal trainer, it's a no-brainer you do. And if you're building a business, that you need someone to almost mentor you through that process. And if you're how you relate it to your business, Yeah,
definitely. I think for me, having someone to look up to that's been successful. I think as well as other influencers, so a lot of other people I went to school with and you played sport with and that side of things, their families had their own businesses or were hugely successful, and then kind of by accident I started aspiring to the things that those people had. So for example, at school I remember the people I wanted to be like were the parents who made enough money to have nice houses, nice cars, but still have the time and freedom to drop their kids off at school, pick them up, park on W Airlines, not really care whether they got a ticket or not. They had ridiculous cars that were like a schoolboy's dream cars, and I always used to think, I wonder what they do for a living. How have they afforded to do this? And really the path I'm going down was I didn't have any interest at 14, 15 in property or owning a letting agency or anything like that. It was literally, my interest was provoked by the people I saw and the freedom that they had and that side of things. When I was younger I wanted to be in the Marines. I'm not sure that would have given me the life I have now or the time and freedom I've had. I think as well business goes through cycles, so at the moment our business is really trying to grow as quickly as possible. If I sort of go back 2 years, I probably had a lot more time freedom because we'd come off the crest of a wave where we'd grown massively. We hadn't had to employ a load more people. There was loads of money going through the business and that side of things. Whereas now we're in a period of growth. So in the market I'm in lettings, it's a really interesting time. You've got tax changes coming in for landlords. Interest rates changes, lots of different external factors which are having an influence, which means at the moment we're having to put the hours in directly to make sure that we're ready for whatever changes come our way.
So what advice would we give our audience before we go into our 18-year-old advice?
What advice would we give the audience?
Yeah. To be more, because it isn't all about just making money. It's about freedom and not falling into the.
I think a lot of it's about mindset, isn't it? Yeah,
the society tells you to live your life a certain way, and I'm just so against that. You have to work 9 to 5, you have to retire when you're 70, and you have to get 28 days holiday a year. Fuck that. For me, I would. That just doesn't sound like a good life to me, and I don't want that for me or the people I'm around. So that's why I'm going against it. But then what things can we help you put in place to make sure that you don't also do that. That's what I want this podcast to also be about, you know?
Yeah, I think we were talking about it before we started filming. One of the biggest things I think is gratitude. So literally whatever force it impacts on you during your day, week, life, month, whatever it is, there's always two ways of looking at things. For me, when I was younger, I definitely used to get really frustrated when there were things that were outside my control that acted upon me, and then I'd react negatively and the whole thing would completely spiral out of control. Whereas actually, I don't know what made the shift, but suddenly I started thinking, okay, well that's outside of my control, nothing I can do about that. It's fascinating. One of my friends always says he's fascinated rather than frustrated. I go, that's fascinating. You know, really, previously I would have been frustrated by something, but suddenly I was fascinated by it. And actually, as soon as you, half the problem I think is when something's acting upon you, be it, I don't know, a financial situation, or for example, a letter from, I don't know, taxman or something, that you've got a tax code change or whatever it is, and you could be really, really frustrated by it. Actually, just let it go and you'll forget about that thing so much quicker. You can go on, and whether it's financial or time or whatever it is, go and spend more of the time achieving what you want to achieve just by forgetting about the negative thing that's happened.
Yeah, the shift is what I think we need to talk more about. Like, I haven't always had this positive growth mindset, and I think that's something that I've also had a shift in, and I'm trying to figure out what made that happen. A lot of it was reading, because I wasn't brought up to have the mindset of you can do whatever you want. My mindset was, but it was still based on a 9 to 5, and I'm still like, I fucking don't want to do that. Even though I was playing football, I couldn't do it 9 to 5. You know, maybe I could, but that was a bad example. But yeah, having that growth mindset, when was that shift, and what made you have that mindset towards life? Whereas, and having that open mindset where you can do what you want to do. Whereas we're taught from a young age that, do you know what I mean? That there's a society way of doing things, and that we have to stick to that.
Well, hopefully
Did you have that though? Did you have, or was you taught as a kid like you can do whatever you want to do?
I don't know. I think.
And there is freedom for you to build that. Like, building your own business is just like, it's getting more popular now, but how many businesses fail? It's like 95%.
I think certainly when I finished school and I ended up going to university, it wasn't what I wanted to do, but my school wasn't a case of, are you going to go to university or what do you want to do? It was, which university out of these 5 or 10 or whatever it is are you going to go to, and which of these 10 subjects are you going to study? I think it's probably changed a lot now, because I'm nearly a dinosaur at nearly 30. But for me, definitely there was a shift in mindset. If I could pinpoint when that happened, that would massively help me. Maybe influences from, I think probably influences when I started hanging around with the right people and listening to the right sort of, when I stopped watching TV, started reading, spending more time on myself. So for example, even when I was at school, sort of 16, I used to go for a run every morning before school and a run after school, and that gave me so much more time to think and take in. Like, we're really lucky to live by the sea, run along the seafront and take in, you know, your own thoughts, and that's the time I think when you sort of strategize. And the other thing, maybe, I don't know if it was an age or maturity thing, when you suddenly realise you don't know everything at all, there's so much more to learn. And probably when I was like 14, I thought that I knew everything, and you know, there wasn't anything to learn, and why did I need to go and learn this or learn that, and maths wasn't going to help me or whatever, when actually suddenly, when I got to the stage where I realised there's so much out there that I don't know, then you start putting more time and focus and energy into learning that stuff. And I think that's when my mindset probably changed massively.
So a combination of exercise and creating energy and being around the right people, you think is a big one?
I think so, yeah.
Reading?
I didn't discover reading until a bit later.
Has that helped?
Massively, yeah, massively.
And just what you listen to, just what you're putting in your brain, I guess, is what makes the difference. Like, for example, I'd have a client who would be the most negative client ever, and I would just feel like the most drained human by the end of that session. And then someone would come in like Simon, and I'd be like buzzing, and I'd see life in a different way. And then I realised how important it was to be around certain people, and how you can't have really negative influences around you all the time, because they are just going to fuck you up. You ain't getting nowhere if you're surrounding yourself with the wrong people all the time. Like, let's say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most of your time with, and I believe in that so much, and that's been proven in my life big time. Like, I've fallen into some really good circles since I come back from travelling, and it's helping me to accelerate, not just from what I'm doing, but from the people that I'm around and from what I'm always putting in my head with what I'm listening to, audiobook wise or podcasts. Like, you haven't got to have these friends in your life, you've got to just listen to them, they're around. Like, nowadays we've got podcasts, YouTube channels, audiobooks, documentaries. Like, you can surround yourself with these people if you choose to, or you can surround yourself with people who are fucking losers, and then you'll become the fifth loser, do you know? I think that's so real. What do you mean?
It's me, someone. So for me as well, definitely, like, this sounds very, very cliche, and hopefully I'll get some brownie points for this, but when I met my wife, I had literally was just trying to save up to buy my first house. I was 20, just in my last year of university, trying to save up to buy a house. Ended up buying a house, and suddenly I had somebody who was supporting what I wanted to do. I remember stripping wallpaper and all the rest of it, and probably most girls at 22, 23 do not want to be stood with their boyfriend stripping wallpaper off a wall out of something their name's not on, they get no financial gain out of it, etc, etc. But Robin was, you know, she'd stand there and strip wallpaper morning till night, whatever it needed to be done. We worked together as a team, and I think whether it's your partner, your friends, your parents, work colleagues, if you feel like you're part of a team and you're working towards a common goal, and you all know what the goal is. So I think that's probably a huge thing, is about goal setting, isn't it? It's planning and goal setting and making sure that everybody understands exactly what the task is. For me, at the moment, this is quite an interesting, I love stories. So for me, recently I've been doing some houses up for a couple of people, very quickly, because we've got a few landlords who wanted to buy properties. They don't have the time or inclination to source the properties or do the work and that side of things, and they kept getting ripped off by people. So ultimately I ended up organising the sourcing and then organising the work for them. And definitely when I first started doing it, it was very haphazard, where, right, okay, I've got this house and I need to strip the kitchen out, strip the bathroom out, and everything would seem to go wrong because I didn't have a clear strategy of how I was going to achieve it. I hadn't planned it, probably hadn't communicated with all the people that were doing the individual parts of the work, the plumber, the painter, the carpenter, the electrician, etc. You know, at what time they needed to be in. Whereas now, the last couple, we've got an even tighter time frame, and we're turning the whole house around in less than 4 weeks. Kitchen, bathroom, plumbing, electrics, painting, carpeting, etc. And the only way we're able to do it far quicker than anybody else can is because we got a team meeting, everyone knows exactly what they need to achieve, how quickly they need to achieve it, what their allotted time slot is, and the fact that that doesn't change. Build in a margin for error in case, you know, some extra work comes up or whatever it is. But ultimately, because we're all pulling together as a team, we've written down our plan, we know what time frame we have to achieve it, it gets done.
It's having the right people on board as well, isn't it? So you imagine having that team, but then 2 of them are on the back having a fag, and they don't want it as much as you. So you've all got to have a common goal, like you said, and you've got to all pull your weight. But yeah, definitely. Law of attraction, big one. You've got to know what you want, and you've got to make it happen.
What would you say to your 18-year-old self?
Oh, fuck. Oh, I'd love to go back there and start again. I tell you, I wouldn't make nowhere near as many mistakes. I'd probably...
You wouldn't be single.
I'd 100% would have stayed single. I hope none of my ex-girlfriends listening to this.
The How to Make Yourself Unpopular podcast.
Yeah, this is literally it. Like, just being honest, mate. Fuck it. I don't want to fucking... Not that... Every podcast or every, like, social media channel is also a bunch of lies nowadays. So I think if we're just honest, it's better, right? It's gonna...
Yeah, definitely.
But I would probably say... I've basically made every mistake because I haven't had the right guidance, I don't think. So I would go and work for, or be an intern, and I said I wouldn't work for someone, an intern of someone who's incredibly successful. So I literally would like sit on YouTube or sit on the internet and find people who were doing things that I wanted to do, and I would email them and think of where I could bring them value to help their business, to work for them for free and just watch what they did. And then I'd be like, what mistake? And then I'd ask them questions on things, so then they could be my role model and my mentor, rather than do it all by myself and realise that every 2 months or so I've made a different mistake and it's cost me more money or more time, whereas I could have moved the needle so much faster. Like, I've done well on my own. I've learnt a lot of the mistakes that I've made. I don't regret them. But I think if I'd done things that way, then I could have been so much further in my development than where I am now. And I'd also would have, university for me, I would have gone and lived somewhere else. I'd have travelled sooner. Them two things I would have definitely changed. And I wouldn't have been a pussy. Like, I wouldn't have travelled on my own. So I had to go with my ex-girlfriend because I was too scared to go on my own, whereas now I'll do anything on my own. So I thank her hugely for that, because she obviously pushed me to go and do it. So I wouldn't be scared to do something now, like, for example, scared to chase a certain goal because it would be unachievable or whatever, whereas now I believe that I can do anything. Like, I want to do crazy shit, like anything. So for example, I can't even ride a bike, like, because I was so scared I was going to fall off as a kid, so I never learnt to ride one. And I literally want to, next year, go to Vietnam and get a moped, having fell off one in Thailand this year, and ride it from one side of Vietnam to the other. Like, I've no idea how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to.
That's pretty cool.
But I'm going to try and do it. And in Vietnam, it's so fucking mental. Like, in Hanoi, if you're on a moped, then you're probably going to die. So I'm going to do it. Like, things like that, I'd just say, just to believe in yourself. And so that probably used to come from a fact, like, my confidence is built from the fact that I've done things successfully, even when I previously thought I maybe couldn't do them. So I've just literally just gone, fuck it, I'm going to try anyway, and done it. And I've realised, oh, it isn't actually that hard. All you've got to do is put in work and put it alongside, like, an application that works. So just trust the process and go and do it. That's what I'd say, and do it sooner. Not be a pussy and wait so long and be scared to live your life. That's probably the biggest one for me. And read more from an earlier age and actually try harder.
Yeah, interesting, because, like, for me, I think I remember a time when I was younger, when I sort of school holidays and that sort of thing, when although I had a job, I knew I wanted to. There was so much I wanted to achieve that I needed money or the discipline or whatever to achieve it, and I just didn't have the outlet to do it. So if I was to advise my 18-year-old self, it would definitely be, whatever it is, get some form of employment. You know, preferably make sure you're self-employed doing something, whether it's affiliate marketing or selling something, you know, reselling something, or trying to build something, or learning a trade, or whatever it is. Get some employment, and get something where you get a financial reward for the effort that you put in. Definitely, I'd say our school, you weren't supposed to have a job, so probably out of 100 people in my year, I would think 70, 80 of them probably didn't have any employment before they went to university. Then they're suddenly at university, they've got to survive on their own, they're probably being helped massively by parents and that side of things, but ultimately they want to earn money and they've no experience whatsoever. They've got loads of qualifications, loads of intelligence, loads of academic intelligence, but they've got no experience whatsoever and pretty much unemployable. If it weren't for their probably intelligence or upbringing or maybe connections. Whereas actually I look at the people in the playground who had a job, who were outgoing, who maybe played lots of sports, had lots of interests, did lots of socialising. They're the ones who probably achieve far more than the ones who were straight academic intelligent. And I think even when I was like 14, 15, you look at the people that are in the younger years or older years that you're at school, and you could easily pick out the people that were going to achieve things because of the way they handled themselves, the way they behaved, and actually the way they interacted with other people. So probably one of the most important things I'd say to my 18-year-old self is to give everybody respect. I remember at school I was always late through the door because I drove to school. I could never find a parking space. I took my brother and sister to school. I was late every day, but quite a lot of the time I made friends with the caretaker because I was polite and that side of thing. I never used to get in trouble because he'd always like open a door that I could get in through the back or through the side of the school without having to go and report to reception. So I didn't end up with detentions and that side of things, and that was literally just about treating everyone with respect and treating them the right way. And when I had a job in Nando's when I was 15 as a waiter, one of my best friends now is someone I served when I worked there, and something went wrong with, I remember really well, something went wrong with their order. I remember my manager was like, oh well, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, just replace it, and sort of towed the line of what needed to be done, and you know, just didn't go above and beyond. Whereas actually, I thought,
Don't know how
we're back.
We've had an issue, but I think hopefully it got to the point where we just finished that conversation. Did you finish, or were you still talking?
So, yeah.
It was about applying yourself, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, just basically, in short, apply yourself, respect other people, find an outlet for whatever it is you want to do, you know, or earn some money, or apply yourself to something. Might even be sport, but apply yourself to something so you feel like you've achieved something. You know the feeling that you get when you've achieved something you want to achieve.
I can relate. I worked part-time at Homebase and I hated it. So I used to do the bare minimum possible to get through the shift. And looking back, I wish that I didn't do that. I wish I put more effort in. Because I think if I'd been the top part-time worker or whatever, then I would have earned myself not only respect from people that potentially could have taken me a different path, I also would have got paid more hours, you know, like things like that. And I would have, I think that would have definitely helped me more, rather than going in with the mindset of, I really don't want to be here, I want to be at the pub with my mates, this is really fucking shit, and just being negative about the fact that I'm there. You're there at the end of the day, so I'll make it what it is, and you can make anything what you want it to be. So rather than think of the things you could be doing instead, think of how good can I make this to try and, cause there's always a chance to do them things anyway, but you can always go to the fucking pub. Whereas now, I would rather sit and work most of the time than actually go to the pub with my mates, because I'm doing something I want to do. But I would have got to that point sooner, I think, if I'd applied myself in other areas, because that would open more opportunities for me.
That's probably why I say get a job or get some sort of employment or paid, you know, paid whatever it is as early as possible, because actually you really need to make the mistakes as quickly as you can. The more mistakes you make, the further or the quicker you develop. So actually the sooner you start, the quicker you get to where you want to be. And I think probably massively had a head start.
And don't be scared of like management, because they're there for a reason. So really, you want to spend as much time on them as possible so you can learn from them. Whereas I used to hide from my management because they were always going to tell me off because I was always doing the wrong things. So, for example, I'd go and hide in the warehouse and I'd sit on my phone and watch football scores, or I'd message my mates and I'd be like not working. Whereas if I was doing good things and being around management more, then I might be able to see why they were management, and that would have taught me more things than I would have learned than if I was hiding in the back talking to my mates. So I think things like that would have made a big difference to me as well. But I think that, it's hard to know how to act though, isn't it, when you're 18 years old, unless you've got people like podcasts like this trying to encourage you to do things in a certain way. Like, I didn't listen to this kind of thing. I was just like, I'm going to Homebase tonight, what the fuck, I should be in the pub. I don't want to go to Homebase tonight, and I was just working a Friday night 5 till 9.
What gave you your first book, or gave you your first podcast? How did you get your first?
I spoke about that briefly in the first podcast. I literally was looking at training stuff, exercise books, and it becomes to be a thing where mindset was the thing that was making this happen, and not training, because you got to motivate yourself to go and do it in the first place. So I was like, I'm going to read this book on mindset, and I was like, fuck, this is different level, and then I just fell into it from there really. But it was by accident, but I wish I got into it sooner. 100%. Do you?
Yeah, definitely. I think.
And what made you fall into it?
When I was at school, actually, last sort of couple of weeks at school, I remember our PE teacher, he had these golden rules of how to treat people on the wall, and then it was referenced at the bottom where it came from. And then I remember when I got home, I thought, right, that's actually really like good way of treating people, I want to print that off. So I clicked on it, I googled it, and then clicked on that, and suddenly there was this massive world of books and personal development and that sort of thing. And then I dipped in and out of it while I was at university. I was too busy, playing sport or whatever. And ultimately then, probably to be fair, even when I was at university, when my friends were going out getting smashed and having a great time, I wanted to do that occasionally, but a lot of the rest of the time I wanted to find something that I could develop myself to achieve what I wanted to achieve as quickly as possible.
So I think I'm a bit more of a late bloomer, because any opportunities to get pissed, I just got pissed. And now I'm the personal trainer sat here.
Telling people not to get pissed.
Yeah. I don't do it anymore. Very often. But so we've got two different stories, but we're both trying to lead towards the same outcome, I think, now, which is freedom and the ability to try and help other people as well, and just to live a life that isn't normal, I think it would be or perceived to be normal, you know?
Yeah, it should be normal, shouldn't it? Everyone should, well,
everyone should be able to do what they want to do.
Be able to do what they want to do, be able to apply themselves and achieve. That's probably one of the things that frustrates me or fascinates me the most, is when you see people where they've got so much opportunity, so much potential, and for me that's what life's about, is whatever your potential is trying to achieve that.
Yeah, but then majority of people will look at someone who's really successful and think, oh, he's a cunt, or we can use the C word on this podcast.
We just did.
Or for example, if you see someone drive past in a Ferrari, you'll think drug dealer, or you'll think stole it, or they've hired it for a day to look good or something. You wouldn't actually think, oh, that guy must have worked really hard to achieve that, or actually hustled his ass off for 14 years to get to the business to a point where he can afford that. Do you know what I mean? Whereas we look at that person and think, what a prick, don't we? Do you know?
Whereas now I'd definitely look at them.
I'd be like, I want to learn from that person. Whereas before, when I didn't have the same mindset, I'd be like, yeah, that's not his car.
Funny, because when I was saying earlier about when I was at school, and or you were saying actually about work experience and that sort of thing, I remember there was somebody who used to park their car outside, the sort of people I've talked about, who was a property developer, and one day I was walking past his car and I just asked him, I just said to him, look, I'm sorry, I'm really interested in what you do, is there any chance I could come and do some work experience with you, for you in my half term? And he was, I think probably the last thing he wanted to do was have like a 14, 15-year-old come and sit in his office for the day, but he was really welcoming, still see him now, and that massively helped me to settle on what I wanted to do, what I wanted to achieve. Was just probably 2 or 3 days where this guy took the time out to let me shadow him for the day and see what his world of work was like.
So you basically did what I said I would do, is that go back?
If you could go back, I did that basically. I might be like the
he's making it up.
Of what you are.
He heard me say that, he's making this up. That's why he's doing so well. So yeah, is that it for the five?
I think so.
Cool. We're going to be in future interviewing other people rather than each other, because you're going to get bored of us two, but we're going to try and make it as humorous as possible, I guess. Maybe we should do one in your bed.
Right, episode. The next episode, that's a challenge. The next episode where we do it together will be from a bed somewhere.
With a guest.
With a guest. Hopefully an attractive guest.
Yes, who are you thinking?
I don't know. Are you getting in a lot of trouble here?
Is your wife listening to this?
I think she might be.
Does she like the C word? Because I've also thought she's going to think bad things of me. I've not actually met his wife yet either. Oh dear. And my mum's probably going to be listening, isn't she? Oh, for God's sake. Right. Thanks for listening. As always, make sure you... Is it subscribe or like the podcast? Whatever you need to do that, because these podcasts are going to be really good. And I hope that you enjoyed today's. And email us with any questions. We'll create like a Be More email address eventually. But initially, just contact us via our emails, which we'll put in the description bit below. Or you can message us on social media.
And also, if you know anyone who would like to be part of our podcast, or anyone successful you'd like us to interview, or that you have access to, or anything like that, we'd love to hear from people who'd like to be interviewed, or someone you have access to.
It isn't just successful either. I think it's someone with a story, and someone that's doing something that's like motivational and against, or part of the Be More vision. I think that's what we want, not just people who earn loads of dough. Thanks guys, see you soon.
Cheers, see you later.